So when the producers made this statement, I wanted to show them and prove to them and America that Asian Americans can be loud, can be outgoing, can be dynamic. So when I went on the show, I made it a point that I was not going to be typecasted. I was not going to sit in the back doing the math stuff. Am I good at math? Yeah, I'm pretty good at math. But when the project required a math person, I said, oh, that's for that white guy over there. That's not for me. I did not want to be typecasted. I wanted to show America that yes, we can be leaders. So when I was on the show, I would tell you the hardest part about being on The Apprentice, and a lot of people don't know this, for 8 weeks straight, I got 2.5 hours of sleep a night. You don't sleep on the show. If you sleep on the show, they will camera you in a way that you're sleeping on a project. And so I did not sleep. It was very difficult. But at the same time, I knew that I was on there for a different purpose than just winning a job with Donald Trump. And so I worked hard, I showed leadership, and I was very, very outgoing on the show. I showed creativity because guess what the producer said? That we're only good at math and we're not creative. We're not outside the box thinkers. Well, guess what? I think they and America need to see that, yes, we are very, very creative. There was another incident that happened on the show that shook me a little bit. And when the show ended, the way it works is we film for 3 months. And then I come back home and I watch it with my family and watch it at the same time that you were watching it. Then I go back, because I was one of the final 2, and go back to a live finale on NBC. On the Sunday that I was supposed to be on NBC, the Monday before, we had a tragedy in our country. We had a tragedy for the Korean American community, and that was a Virginia Tech incident. And I'm sure some of you do remember that.
That's right.
Vividly.
Oh, yeah.
I had no understanding, or I had a misunderstanding of how media worked. So that week I had to go down to LA early because I had to do press interviews with LA Times, with People Magazine, and so on and so on. But what was so interesting for me that I could not believe what I was seeing is that the interview question that I got predominantly was, can a Korean American win a national television show when a Korean American just did what they did in Virginia Tech?
Oh.
I could not believe the media was asking me that question. I will not posture the fact that I didn't win because of that. I don't believe that. But I just couldn't believe the media saw a Korean American as one and not as people, as individuals. I couldn't believe it. So unfortunately, we still do live in a world that does not fully accept the diversity in all of us. Even today, there's evidence of discrimination, lack of cultural awareness, and glass ceilings for minorities. With that being said, we have still made a long way. We've made a lot of progress in the last 100 years of Korean Americans. So I believe that we need to celebrate the victories that we have throughout the journey. I want to take you back into history and look at some of the milestones that our Korean American brothers and sisters have achieved. In 1864, it was the birth of Philip Jason, the first Korean American to become an American citizen. In 1902, on December 22nd, the first group of Korean immigrants, 56 men, 21 women, and 25 children, sailed across the Pacific en route to Hawaii to work as immigrant laborers on the sugar plantations. 1906, the Korean Evangelical Society was organized in San Francisco, who published the first Korean language newspaper. 1913, 15 Korean fruit pickers about to start a job in Riverside County, California, are surrounded and driven off by a mob of Caucasian unemployed European Americans. 1948, Sammy Lee, a Korean American, wins the gold medal in the men's diving division at the London Olympic Games. 1965, President Nixon appoints Judge Herbert Choi, the first Asian American to be named at the federal court. 1983, and we can't forget these guys, the nonprofit Korean American Coalition, KAC, is formed to facilitate Korean American community participation in civic legislative affairs. In '92, the Korean community in Los Angeles suffers a devastating loss following 4 days of rioting in response to the Rodney King verdict, with nearly 2,500 Korean businesses damaged. But at the same time that year, we also had a victory. Korean American businessman Jae Kim is elected to Congress, becoming the first Korean American member of Congress. '94, a little fun one, Margaret Cho becomes the first Asian American to star in her own television show, All American Girl. 2001, Harry Kim becomes one of the nation's first Korean mayors in Hawaii. But the most shocking one, I guess shocking is the right one for me, has happened in 2007. A 105-pound, competitive Korean American woman who goes by the name of the Black Widow beat a dozen beefy rivals Saturday night, scarfing down 173 buffalo wings in 12 minutes to win the wing eating contest at the National Buffalo Wing Festival. We've come a long ways when a 100-pound woman beats out 12 lineman-sized people in a buffalo wing eating contest. We've certainly come a long ways. Our families have traveled the same journey here. We as immigrants have powerfully transformed and defined this nation. Our nation was shaped and changed by the blood, sweat, and tears of all the immigrants involved. And generations of immigrants have renewed and enriched our American dream. We have formed the tides of change and contributed to the cultural, political, and intellectual wealth of our nation. We, our fathers, our mothers, our grandparents, were the hard-working backbones of prosperity and progress for us. We must not forget our history. We must not take for granted what our previous generation has done for us to give us our opportunity. But at the same time, we must not live in the history or the past, but also forge ahead into the future. We must create our own history and leave future generations the legacy, the stories, the values, so that one day we will add our mark to the time capsule for another future generation to gain inspiration from. So the question lies, what legacy, what inspiration will we leave? Will we leave a generation that only cares about personal success, wealth, how big is my home, degrees, cars? There's nothing wrong with personal success, but personal success does not build a legacy of community. Will we build a Korean community that will be recognized not just by Koreans, but by the larger American society? What will the Korean American community represent and be remembered for?